Good morning again, and happy Mother's Day to you all. We'll be weaving in the theme of Divine Mother throughout our service today. This story of Martha and Mary is so central to religion, to the spiritual path, to our life in general. And we're spending 2 weeks on it because one was not sufficient. It's so funny how we can be so busy and in service and in activity, and then start with an inspiration. This happened to me a few nights ago. I had an inspiring conversation with someone, and I was just thrilled at all the possibilities that could result from this new friend, this new interactions, this new affiliation. And so I started talking to a bunch of my friends about it, and I started thinking about, well, what if this and then that another thing we could do, and then I started researching on the internet different things that might be related to it, and suddenly I found myself, it was way past my bedtime. I was tired, I was burned out, and I was uninspired. And I thought, whoops, how did I end up here? But it's very, very easy to see that we can start out with inspiration from God and get excited with that inspiration. Certainly I did. And then in our excitement, we can start getting excited about all these little things that are related to it, and then God kind of says, wait, and we say, no, I know what I'm doing. And then off I went, and then I was just excited. I wasn't excited with God, I was just excited. And then later, I was drained. And the story again of Martha and Mary is that Martha was busy serving the guests at her home. She and Mary were sisters. Jesus was there giving a discourse, and Mary was sitting at his feet, absorbed in his presence, and Martha was running around, we can imagine, refilling the cups of tea and making sure everyone had enough lavash bread or whatever it was, and said, basically, Lord, I'm sitting here doing everything while my sister is just sitting peacefully at your feet, doing nothing. Can't you ask her to help me? And it's not an unreasonable complaint. But Jesus said, Martha, Martha, thou art careful and troubled about many things, but one thing is needful, and Mary hath chosen that good part, and it shall not be taken away from her. Now, obviously, Jesus had told us to serve and do good works and things in other areas. All the scriptures do. And so he wasn't saying, don't worry about the tea and the lavash, just sit around all the time. Very few people can actually make great spiritual progress simply by meditating in a cave for 40 years. Some there are, but for most of us, that's not our calling this time. And similarly, we don't know the rest of the story. He may well have said to Mary, go and help your sister, just for her sake. But the difference is, Martha could have been running around with the tea and the bread in a state of joy. She could have felt the bliss of Jesus' presence, her teacher's presence, her Lord's presence, and have felt just uplifted in that she wasn't even noticing all that she was doing. And in that case, she would have chosen the good part. Swami, in the expanded commentary on this, emphasizes that Jesus even said, the good part Mary hath chosen, not the better part, meaning it's better to meditate than to serve. He said the good part, as if to say, the only part. We have to always keep Divine Mother enshrined in our hearts. And if we find that going, we should stop whatever we're doing and find a way to get back in tune with her. Whether we stop and chant, whether we read an inspiring book, whether we meditate, whether we just sit still and pray. But to be so caught up in activity that we lose that contact, which happens, certainly to me, about 100,000 times a day, still stop, find a way to catch ourselves and get back in tune. Now, it's easier to do that when we meditate every day. As Yogananda said of meditation, I found the joy of meditation returning subconsciously throughout my day, guiding me even in the details. And so, whether our meditation is full of angels and light, or whether our meditation is full of restless thoughts about breakfast, or whether our meditation is not even full of many thoughts at all, we can't quite remember, did we even meditate? Meaning, because we fell asleep. Still, the sheer effort of meditating always brings blessings. Yogananda said, every time you meditate, some karma, some of our restrictions which keep us from knowing the divine fully, some karma is burned away. Every time we meditate. He didn't say every time we meditate well. Every time we meditate for at least an hour. And every time we meditate deeply. He obviously encouraged us in all these things, and we shouldn't lose sight of the goal. However, the sheer act of trying to meditate brings blessings. The act of serving others, helping others, is very important, especially as an expression of that. Yogananda said, if you serve all the time and don't meditate, well, we become restless, agitated. I can certainly attest to that from personal experience. If we meditate only and don't serve, we tend to become lazy. And actually, it can be one can become self-centered. We need that balance between these two activities. And so, Mary, absorbed at Jesus' feet, could then, as my little sort of hypothesis goes, could have gotten up and helped her sister and still been in that state. And it doesn't really matter what we are doing outwardly. So I began to reflect on this. Why is this a teaching at all? Why is this even difficult? Well, one thing I know that's difficult for me is that I can get caught up in doing good for others, in doing, this person needs this help, and that person needs that help, and this, service needs this preparation, and that I should make a phone call, and plus we need to do more marketing to reach more people, and all the different thoughts that can go through the head. And yet, as Swami mentions in the reading, good service will bring us good karma. But what's that? Karma is still that which binds us. He said, contemplation of the Lord will free us from all karma. Good karma is basically like golden handcuffs. Very pretty, but very restrictive. The saints don't speak about good karma and bad karma. They just say karma. And chains, though of gold, still bind. And so we want to be free from all karma. And I say this partly because it can be tempting if we're doing good works and it seems to be working out and people are praising and thanking, or someone says, you've helped me so much. It's not that those things aren't special. But if we think that's the ultimate end, we certainly can get fatigued because there's only so much we can do. And then the next day you do everything you can for someone and they just say, bah! And then you, as Haridas likes to say, always Divine Mother does the healing. Sometimes through us, sometimes through someone else, or directly. So if ever there is a healing in our presence, it is because she has acted through us, not because of anything else. Now, the other reason that I saw that makes this whole teaching difficult is that I get caught up in doing. And the more I do, the more I think about, well, I have to do this and I have to do that. And it starts out with, from the morning meditation, excellent, I feel like I've got 4 arms and I can do everything. And then, by lunch it's down to 2 arms. And, by afternoon there's no arms. And just kind of... It's because my thought of all this doing has transferred from God as the doer to I am the doer. Swami Kriyananda greeted people outside of a service that Yogananda gave at at Hollywood Church. And he shook hands with people, and people sort of subconsciously perhaps feeling this is Yogananda's channel, one of his disciples, were drawing from him every time they shook his hand. And he was exhausted by the end of it. And he asked Master, how can I do that ever again without just being wiped out? And Yogananda said, when you were shaking hands with them, you were thinking of giving them your energy. Instead, think of giving them God's energy. And so Swamiji tried this the next time it was his turn to do so, and he felt even more uplifted and energized by the end of it. And so we can remember that. Sometimes we have someone comes to us with an intense problem and we do all we can for that person. And even if you can't in that moment think, wait a second, God is the doer. I guess God has nothing to say to you. We have to be natural. But still, at the end, even if, the person goes and we kind of, if you sometimes feel there's sometimes a cloud or a little bit of a haze after you finish a conversation, at that moment you can then offer it up to God and say, Divine Mother, carry her home or carry him home. You're the one taking care. And the irony of thinking, well, is God the doer or am I the doer, is that God is the doer. So as clever as we think, well, actually, I am doing something, we're not. I mean, we can imagine we're driving our car. I was thinking about this the other day. I was driving my car around and turning this way and turning that way. I guess I was remembering driving a car because I haven't driven a car in about 6 weeks because my wife has the car. I have to be honest here. But imagining myself driving a car, I suddenly had this vision. I don't know if you've seen these things, but there are strollers that are shaped like a car. And so the kid has the wheel and is focused on this. And Divine Mother is just walking along, pushing the stroller. And she's the one turning left. And she's the one turning right. But, whoa, watch out, here comes a bush, and I've really got to concentrate. So we are just always carried by Divine Mother, and whether we remember her or not, she remembers us. And we need to always turn back in trust to her. God's forgiveness is instant. In fact, it's not even there. If we say, I'm so sorry I forgot you, she just says, I'm so glad that you remembered. I'm so glad that you're here. And she loves us more than we can know. St. John Vianney said, if you knew how much God loved you, you would die for joy. Such a thrilling thought. And in all of this, it isn't only that we want to become partners with God and have her act through us and have her carry us around and do everything with her. Certainly we want that, but we want more. We want to merge with the divine. We want Divine Mother to fully enter our hearts, fully take over our lives, and carry us to the infinite shores. Now we're going to have a little bit of a special thing for this part of service. The first thing I have to warn you about is that at some point our landlord may come in because we're having a little bit of a bee problem upstairs. And so if somebody's charged, don't worry, the bees aren't invited to come downstairs. But if there's a little disturbance or a ruckus, just please bear with it. It actually is the theme of today. I can't resist telling the story I meant to tell. Speaking on this theme of, isn't that amazing? I kind of concluded my talk and then get to keep going. There should be like a law or something, but too bad. I've got the microphone. No, good point. So I was thinking about how hard we try to get centered and then how Divine Mother throws a little grenade in our path, or Maya throws the grenade. And in a way, Maya is just Divine Mother with a mask on. And, why would Divine Mother fill our room upstairs with bees? It's literally. It's partly because, I guess that's bees in a bonnet, isn't it? Anyway, it's because when we see the bees, we say, oh my God, can you help? And we start praying. That's why she knocks us out of our ruts, because suddenly our car gets stolen and we say, okay, God, here I am. I'm on my knees. Please help. These things make us remember her. I mean, she could find other ways of reminding us too. In fact, she does. But sometimes when the third and fourth and fifth little invitation doesn't work, then she sends the bees. And I was very clever in putting the chanting, the fire ceremony that we do every morning. I was very clever in putting the mantras on my phone so that we could play them over the system. And I even had the thought, you know what? Someone may call my phone when I am connecting it to it. So I will outsmart Maya, and I will put my phone on airplane mode. And then I gave the phone to Tony, and I said, here we go, and can you please press play? And so we're halfway through the Gayatri mantra, and suddenly, to my horror, I hear it fading out, which I know it only does when a call is coming. And then, do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And it was the landlord saying, I'm going to come get the bees. And so it was just the perfect symbol of what was going on in my head and of this lesson. Turned out I had taken it off airplane mode to quickly call the landlord and then forgot to put it back on airplane mode. So anyway, the landlord may come through in the middle of all of this. That was my first announcement. The second thing is we're going to be doing offering a flower. If you don't have a flower, you can get one right here. And Dharmadevi will be chanting. And just take a moment, come up to the altar one at a time, offer your flower at the altar here. You can place it with the petals facing outward and just offer whatever you feel to Divine Mother. And so we'll do that now.